It was a sunny, peaceful Sunday at Willow Creek Park, the kind of day perfect for families to relax and enjoy each other's company. Lush green lawns stretched out under the cloudless sky, children squealed with laughter on the playground, and the scent of freshly cut grass filled the air. Among the parkgoers was Marcus, a devoted father, and his 6-year-old daughter Lily. Marcus had packed a modest picnic: ham sandwiches, orange slices, and a chilled bottle of juice, and the two sat on a well-worn plaid blanket. Lily chattered excitedly about her plans for the school year, while Marcus listened attentively, nodding and laughing at her stories. He adored these moments, the quiet bonding time that made her feel cherished. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and her hazel eyes sparkled as she proudly displayed a loose tooth. Not far from them, an elderly woman named Mrs. Carver sat on a wooden bench, observing the scene with a critical eye. Marcus noticed her gaze but thought little of it. As a black man raising an adopted daughter who was white, he was accustomed to curious or skeptical stares. He shrugged it off, focusing on Lily, who had just spotted the jungle gym. "Daddy, can I go play?" she asked, already bouncing to her feet. "Go ahead, sweetheart," Marcus replied, grinning. "Just don't go too far." Lily darted toward the playground, her laughter echoing through the park. Marcus leaned back on the blanket, enjoying the warm afternoon breeze, unaware that Mrs. Carver was pulling out her phone to call 911. Lily climbed onto the jungle gym, her pink sneakers kicking the air as she swung from bar to bar. Marcus kept a watchful eye on her, ensuring she stayed safe. Across the way, Mrs. Carver ended her phone call and marched toward the playground, her expression a mix of concern and disapproval. She approached Lily, her voice sharp. "Little girl, where's your mother?" Lily froze mid-climb, gripping the metal bars. "I'm here with my dad," she said, pointing toward Marcus, who was already on his feet and heading their way. "Excuse me, is there a problem?" Marcus asked, his tone measured but firm as he reached them. Mrs. Carver looked him up and down, her skepticism palpable. "I just wanted to make sure everything was all right. You two don't exactly look related." Lily climbed down and ran to Marcus, clutching his hand tightly. "He's my daddy," she said, her voice defiant yet tinged with confusion. Marcus knelt beside her, gently squeezing her hand. "Go back to the blanket, Lily. I'll be there soon." Reluctantly, she obeyed, glancing back over her shoulder. Mrs. Carver's voice lowered, but her tone remained condescending. "You can't blame me for being cautious. A man like you with a child like her. People need to ask questions." Marcus took a steadying breath. "There's no need for suspicion. She's my daughter, and we're just enjoying our day." Before more could be said, the distant sound of sirens pierced the calm park atmosphere. Conversations hushed, and all eyes turned toward the flashing lights as 2 police cars pulled into the lot. Marcus's chest tightened, but he knew he had to remain composed for Lily. 2 officers exited their vehicles, 1 male and 1 female, their faces neutral but focused. Mrs. Carver waved them over, launching into an animated explanation of her concerns. Marcus stood firm, his stance calm but resolute, as the male officer approached. "Sir, can we have a word?" the officer asked, his tone professional. Marcus nodded. "Of course." He glanced toward Lily, who was clutching her juice bottle, her expression anxious. He gave her a reassuring smile. The questions came quickly. "What's your name? What are you doing here? Who is the child?" Marcus answered each calmly, though his patience wore thin. "She's my daughter," he said firmly. "Her name is Lily, and we're here for a picnic. That's all there is to it." The officer glanced toward Mrs. Carver, who stood with her arms crossed, urging them to look deeper. "Sir," the female officer interjected, "we'll need to verify some information. Do you have identification?" Marcus retrieved his wallet and calmly handed over his driver's license. "Here's my ID. And these," he said, pulling out a folded set of papers from his bag, "are her adoption documents." The male officer reviewed the paperwork while the female officer watched Marcus and Lily closely. Meanwhile, Lily walked back to her father, clutching his leg. "Daddy, are they mad at us?" she whispered. Marcus knelt again, brushing a tear from her cheek. "No, sweetheart. They just need to understand. As the officers continued their review, the park remained silent, the weight of the situation hanging heavy. Mrs. Carver shifted uncomfortably, her self-righteousness fading under the quiet scrutiny of other parkgoers who had gathered to watch. It was another peaceful Sunday at Willow Creek Park. Marcus stood silently as the officers reviewed his documents. The sun shone brightly, but for Marcus, time felt heavy and stretched with tension. Nearby, the woman who had initiated the ordeal stood with crossed arms, her expression smug as though certain she had done the right thing. Marcus glanced down at Lily, who clung to his leg, her innocent face etched with confusion. The ache of seeing her shaken safety made him take a steadying breath. He reminded himself that the truth would prevail. The female officer carefully examined the adoption papers while her partner verified Marcus's ID. The silence felt endless, each second dragging. Marcus stood tall, his face neutral despite the anger simmering within. "Daddy," Lily whispered, her wide eyes filled with uncertainty. "Are we in trouble?" Marcus crouched, smoothing her hair. "No, baby girl. We're not in trouble," he said softly, his calm voice steadying her. Finally, the female officer looked up, her expression softening. "Everything checks out," she said, returning the papers. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience." The male officer nodded. "Thanks for your cooperation. There's clearly no issue here." Before Marcus could respond, the woman interjected angrily. "That's it? Look at them. Doesn't this seem odd?" The female officer's tone sharpened. "Ma'am, everything is in order. There's no cause for concern." Her firm response quieted the murmurs of parkgoers who had gathered to watch. Marcus exhaled slowly. "I understand wanting to protect children," he said, turning to the woman. "But this isn't protection, it's prejudice. My daughter deserves to feel safe." Lily, gripping his hand, looked up and said firmly, "He's my dad. I love him." Her voice carried across the park, breaking the tension like a breeze after a storm. The woman's confidence faltered, her smugness replaced by guilt as her gaze dropped. Around them, murmurs quieted. Some onlookers offered Marcus sympathetic glances, while others seemed embarrassed by their silence. The officers nodded again before leaving. The female officer paused briefly. "Have a good day, sir," she said before driving away. The crowd dispersed slowly, but the weight of the incident lingered. A nearby couple approached with their son. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," the man said awkwardly. "That wasn't right." His partner added, "Your daughter's lucky to have you. You handled that so well." Marcus smiled, his gratitude subtle but sincere. "Thank you. I hope this makes someone think twice next time." As others passed, some nodded or offered small apologies. While it didn't undo the harm, it reminded Marcus that not everyone saw the world with the same prejudice. Across the park, the woman sat alone, staring at her hands. Marcus considered speaking to her, but decided against it. Her regret was evident. "Daddy," Lily said, tugging his sleeve. "Can we go home now?" "Of course, sweetheart." As they walked to the car, her small hand in his, Marcus felt a mix of weariness and hope. The day had been difficult, but it showed the strength of their bond. On the drive home, Marcus broke the silence. "Lily, remember when we talked about kindness? How being kind makes the world better." She nodded. "Even if others aren't kind?" "Exactly," Marcus replied. "That woman didn't understand us and made a mistake. But that doesn't change who we are." Lily's contemplative voice broke the quiet. "I love our family, Daddy. Nobody can change that." Marcus's heart swelled. "And I love you more than anything, Lily. Always." That evening, as he tucked her into bed, she hugged him tightly. "I think that lady needs to learn about kindness too," she whispered. "She does," Marcus agreed. "But what's important is that you always remember how much you're loved." The next weekend, Marcus and Lily returned to the park. They were met with friendly smiles and waves from familiar faces. Though the world hadn't changed overnight, the small gestures of solidarity reminded Marcus that progress, however slow, was always possible. Watching Lily laugh on the swings, Marcus felt certain their love and acceptance would one day grow stronger than any prejudice.